health conditions that might benefit from a ketogenic diet. So, but we're only going to cover.
Right. But I thought what was nice about it is this is an evidence-based magazine article, and you don't find those very often. Usually they're sensationalized or they're negative about the ketogenic lifestyle. So to find one in a reputable magazine that was really positive was like groundbreaking, in my opinion.
So it has, you'll see if you follow the link that it has references to studies that have been done, and other resources that they use to draw the information from. This is by no means a, fully detailed synopsis of anything.
No, we're not going to be geeking out too bad here.
No, it's just information. It's interesting information. And our hope is that you will then take some time to do some reading on your own, to do some research on your own if you're interested in getting more information. As well. So,
because we've discussed before that continuing education on the ketogenic lifestyle is a real key to success, especially longevity on this lifestyle. Is continuing to educate yourself.
Yes. And so again, we're just going to cover 5 today, and let's get right to it. So the first one on your list and on my list is metabolic syndrome.
Metabolic is what it feels like sometimes.
Metabolic syndrome.
So that's a fancy term for hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance.
Right. So. And you will see us kind of look at notes or reference the article. Right. And so essentially you can be diagnosed with metabolic syndrome if you have any one of the, it's actually 5 conditions.
Criteria.
Large waistline, 35 inches, in men,
40 for men and 35 for
40
women.
for men,
right.
35 for women. Elevated triglycerides, low HDL, cholesterol, high blood pressure, elevated fasting blood sugar.
Right.
And when I started keto, I had...
You fit into this parameter.
I fit into this parameter. And it was interesting that as I started getting diagnosed, I was pre-diabetic first.
Right.
As they were looking at numbers, so I was classified as pre-diabetic.
Right.
And then eventually, as time progressed, I was, I guess, full-fledged type 2 diabetic.
Right.
And put on medications. And so the ketogenic diet, there's been research that shows and studies that show that it can help with metabolic syndrome. I don't know why I can't say that.
And actually the study that they did was a controlled 12-week study, and they took people with metabolic syndrome on a ketogenic diet, and they lost 14% of their body fat in 12 weeks. And so that decreased their triglycerides by more than 50%, and they experienced several other improvements in health markers. And the thing with metabolic syndrome is that a lot of why it occurs, so scientists agree and doctors as well, is a lot of times it has to do with your weight. Having weight to lose can up all of these markers. So by practicing the ketogenic diet, they're able to lose weight and thus bring down a lot of these markers and put them within safe levels so that their insulin is under control.
Right. All right, so that's one. And one of the good things about this article is, although it will talk about the different health conditions, but it also has a part where it says the bottom line.
Right, it's a summary of what each condition, what the ketogenic diet might do.
And this really isn't, I mean, it's got good information, but it's not super...
it's not going to hurt your brain to read it.
It won't.
Because they are talking about these studies, which I find beneficial. Because some of these studies are animal studies, but some of them are also controlled human studies, and that's paving the way for more human studies. The problem is that a lot of times funding is lacking in newer diets like the ketogenic diet.
Which isn't really a new diet.
Right, but as we're progressing and the popularity of this diet continues, more and more studies are being funded and being done. So this is good. This is like a base for that happening.
Right. So the next one is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome.
Or PCOS.
Okay.
If you've heard of that.
Now, until I had come into the world of keto and keto on YouTube, to be honest, I had never heard of PCOS. OS, and I guess I hate to say it, but why would I? Because
You don't have ovaries?
I don't have
What?
ovaries, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying I had never heard of it before we started the keto. I had never heard of it. I never knew it was
I have indeed have had PCOS in my
Oh.
lifetime. I had extremely cystic ovaries. I did not suffer with a lot of the consequences that a lot of women have as far as infertility or irregular periods or any of those things, but I did have, via ultrasound, I was able to see how cystic my ovaries were. So
Wow.
since beginning this lifestyle, I have not had any difficulties at all with this. And sometimes women with PCOS can have infertility, and they can also have difficulties losing weight. So there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to be found online. However, they did a very interesting 6-month study of 11 women. Following a ketogenic diet, their weight loss averaged 12%, and their fasting insulin also declined by 54%, so almost half. And reproductive hormone levels improved. So, and 2 of the women of the 11 in this study became pregnant.
Well,
So a lot of people who are, in fact, Jason Fung is writing a book all about PCOS.
oh, is he? Okay.
Yes, that's going to be his next book. You know, he had the obesity code, and then he had diabetes code, and now he's writing one for
Right.
women about PCOS. So this lifestyle really can make a difference for those suffering from this condition.
Right. So it's not just about weight loss. It can make a big difference.
Right,
in
it
a
can
lot of
balance your cycles
Yes.
and make it, you know, infertility go away if that is an issue for you, and just make you feel overall better.
Yeah. Okay. So I learned something tonight right
Yay.
here from this keto conversation. The next one that we're going to talk about is diabetes. Again, as I mentioned, I started and have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
So at first you have the metabolic syndrome.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then I had, but see, then I kind of wondered, it's like, okay, because
I think you were always like right on the borderline.
yeah, because they're looking at numbers,
Right, and your fasting blood sugars and your
Yes,
glucose
yes,
amounts
yes.
and insulin and that
Yes.
kind of thing. So sometimes it's hard to tell unless you're like way at the end of the spectrum.
Yes.
Sometimes you can be
Yes.
either or.
And my numbers were pretty high when I first started. So
you were
again,
never on insulin. You were only
No,
on
I was never on
like
insulin. I was on
metformin,
metformin.
pre-diabetic. You
Yes,
know.
yes.
And there are people who have full-blown diabetes that only still take metformin and aren't into insulin yet, but
Right.
you were not taking insulin.
Right, but this actually talks about people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes
Oh, definitely.
benefiting from the ketogenic
For
diet
sure,
or
for
ketogenic
sure.
lifestyle. So
Yeah, for sure. Would you like to read? Do you want to read the first
no,
study?
you can go ahead and do it.
Okay. So the first study was a 16-week study, and 17 of 21 people on the ketogenic diet were able to discontinue or decrease diabetes medication dosage. Study participants also lost an average of 19 pounds and reduced their waist size, triglycerides, and blood pressure. So that was the first study that they did.
Yeah, and then the next one is in a 3-month study comparing the ketogenic diet to a moderate carb diet. People in the ketogenic group averaged a 0.6% decrease in HbA1c, and 12% of the participants achieved a HbA1c below 5.7%, which is considered normal. And so that actually happened to me.
Yes.
Where I was able to get down
You're in that normal range
to that
now.
magic number.
Right.
It's not as low as they would like it to be.
But it's still low enough that you don't require medication.
Exactly. They actually would like it a little bit lower, but that was all through keto.
Well, and as you continue to lose weight, that will probably
Yes,
keep going down and down.
And I will also say that I actually have been back.
Yes.
I went back this year, and my numbers have stayed consistent.
Right. After like 2 years off of
With no medication at
metformin.
all. So so it's helped me. So I can attest to that.
Right. So the bottom line for this is that ketogenic diets have been shown to reduce blood sugar in people with diabetes, and in some cases, values returned to a normal range, and they were able to discontinue their medications or have their doses.
Yeah, and I will say this about this because I've had some experience with this. So you start keto, and a lot of times your doctors aren't supportive of you doing it.
Right.
That's just reality. A lot of doctors aren't supportive of you doing a ketogenic diet, even low carb diet. And we are not doctors.
Nope.
But we do know and have talked to too many people that have had this success where things have gotten reversed. But again, sometimes your doctor will be slow about taking you off of medications. And it's just you needing to have a conversation with your physician.
Because you need to be careful.
Yes.
Sometimes it can happen quickly. And you can start feeling crummy because you're taking more medication than you need to. Because it is happening quickly.
That is a very good point. Because it actually didn't take me that long to be able to really reduce the medication and then eventually be able to get off of it. It didn't take that much time.
Right.
And so you do need to work with your physician as you do, especially if you've been diagnosed with
right, because this
diabetic.
says 16 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're talking just a matter of months. So
yeah. So
you definitely need to be.
You do need to be
on top of keeping track of how you feel and letting your doctor know, hey, I might be taking too much.
Right, and let them know. And let them know. When keto's working for you, let them know that hey, this is what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And because one of the things they can't deny is the results.
Exactly.
They can't deny the results. They can't deny the success. So they may not necessarily agree with what you're doing.
Right.
But they can't deny what they're seeing in front of them.
Yeah, your blood levels.
Yes.
Your tests. I mean, if they're seeing your HbA1c going down, they can't do anything but say, okay, we got to take away some medication.
Yeah,
here.
they can't deny it. So just keep that in mind as you go along, especially if you are on medications that you need to first of all monitor it, stay in touch with your doctor about it, and also just be aware that they may not be as supportive as you think, but some doctors are. There's more and more doctors that are, learning more about.
At least open to the idea.
Yes, there are more and more doctors that are open, and so it just kind of depends on who your doctor is. But that's just something for you to keep in mind if you're a diabetic and you're doing keto. All right, so number 5. Number 4.
Number 4. Yep.
Some cancers, and I'm going to let you talk more about this because you've got some experience with this, or as far as
familial.
You're familiar with this.
So cancer is one of the leading causes of death worldwide, and there are multiple types of cancer, of course. But it says, in recent years, scientific research has suggested that a ketogenic diet may help some types of cancer when used along with traditional treatments such as chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Mm-hmm. So there are certain types of cancers that benefit from a ketogenic diet. And at the end of this, it says basically that most every cancer is helped by this type of diet. There's a very rare kinds of cancers that would be exacerbated by the ketogenic diet, but almost all types of cancers are helped with this. Brain cancer, cancers that have spread to other parts of the body. There's at least 6 or 7 clinical trials written about in this article. And it's interesting to note that even if you are undergoing these other therapies like chemotherapy and radiation, that the side effects from those types of treatments can be lessened by practicing a ketogenic diet, which is really nice because a lot of your feeling bad when you have cancer is going through these other treatments. This being sick, losing your appetite, losing your hair, all of the things that happen when you're going through radiation and chemotherapy. So a lot of that can be offset by practicing a ketogenic diet. And my mother, who is a cancer survivor, practiced the ketogenic diet along with other things. She never had radiation or chemotherapy. She only had surgeries. But by practicing the ketogenic diet, and she also did some intermittent fasting, it made a very large difference in her cancer, the reversals of her cancer, and also her continuing to keep her cancer diagnosis at bay. Mm-hmm. So,
and she is being checked for that.
Yes, and last year at this time they gave her a clean bill of health. In fact, they told her that it looked like she'd never had cancer. Mm-hmm. So, and my mom had stage 4. It had gone into her bones. It had gone into her lymph nodes. It was stage 4. So it can happen. this is not to say that this will work for every type of cancer.
Yeah.
It's not to say, I'm sure there are varying degrees. If you've been given a terminal diagnosis, you know, that might not be the situation for you. But for people who also would like to prevent cancer, the ketogenic diet can be an assist in that, in helping keep your inflammation levels low.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And you know, I never knew that your mom didn't go through the chemo. I never knew.
No,
that.
she did not. She opted not to do chemotherapy and radiation. She did have surgery, and she had grafts and things like that because her cancer was on the top of her head. It was squamous cell carcinoma, and so she had to have the lesion removed. And of course, that, you know, took a large part of her scalp, and so they took the scalp from. At first they took a graft from her back and did it, and it did not take. So the body rejected it, and so they actually had to remove the other side of her scalp, put it over here, and then take another graft. So anyway, but and miraculously her hair grew back and all of those things.
Yeah,
so
true.
it was, and she's still practicing a form of a ketogenic diet. She's a little more towards the carnivore side now than she was previously, but she's really enjoying it. So, yeah. So the bottom line, animal and human research suggests ketogenic diets may benefit people with certain cancers when combined with other therapies. So this article is not in any way suggesting that you only practice the ketogenic diet for your cancer.
It's not.
It's saying in conjunction with whatever else your doctor suggests, but it can help, like I said, with the side effects of other therapies that you might choose to use.
Right. And when we do these types of keto conversations, so first of all, we're referencing an article.
Right.
This one, again, we like it because it takes you to different studies that have been done.
Because if you want to geek out on studies.
And research that's been done. But our hope, again, is that you, if it interests you, that you go and do your own research.
And these kinds of articles can also be helpful if you have loved ones or coworkers or other people who might not be in support of what you're doing. An article like this with actual studies in it might help people understand your line of thinking if you are practicing the ketogenic lifestyle and maybe people think it's unsafe or other things like that. Being able to send them an article like this to someone with those thoughts might be helpful in getting them to understand why you are practicing this lifestyle.
Yeah, they may never agree with you, but you know,
at least this is some kind of, you know, food for thought for them.
Yes, it gives them some kind of framework to say that, hey, they're not just really off the rocker and just doing something crazy. But there actually is some research, science behind what you're doing. So, all right, so the last one that we're going to cover today is obesity. All right, so I don't really have any notes on the obesity. I can't read what I have anyway because it's so small.
What they are referencing in this particular set of studies is the difference between people who use the ketogenic diet for their obesity versus people who used a calorie-restricted diet.
Yes.
So it shows that a very low-carb ketogenic diet can be more effective for most people than a calorie-restricted low-carb diet. And so the first study was a 24-week study, and this was in men who followed a ketogenic diet lost twice as much fat as men who ate a low-fat diet. And so we're talking fat. These people lost not just weight, but they lost fat.
And we said a low-fat diet, not a low-carb diet, because actually you misspoke earlier.
I'm sorry.
So
low-carb, not low-fat. We don't want low-fat. We want the opposite of low-fat.
Right. So so people on a ketogenic diet did twice as good as people on a low-fat diet.
Right, or low calorie, calorie restricted is the words that they're using.
Yes.
So, and it said in addition to that, their triglycerides dropped significantly and their HDL, their good cholesterol, increased. So part of that is not just practicing ketogenic diet, but overall weight loss can help those things as well. For some reason, your body reacts very well when you lose a significant amount of weight as far as your numbers getting better. So.
Right, and one of the things I noted here is that it says the ketogenic diet's ability to reduce hunger is one of the reasons why they works so well for weight loss.
Right.
It's because people aren't hungry.
Right.
And so
because they're allowed to eat
yes.
more. I wouldn't say as much as they want, because I mean you can still run into trouble if you're like nonstop eating even on the ketogenic diet. But
believe me, I know that.
as opposed to calorie restriction, where you're only given a certain allotment every day and you have to stay within that. The ketogenic diet allows you more freedom in the ability to eat more satiating foods and not have to stay necessarily within a calorie budget. So it can be a little bit easier to stick to, like CJ said, because you're not as hungry.
Yeah.
So.
And I think people who do keto and actually, you know, I've met people who do keto and then they stop, they get off of keto completely. I know one person that I can think of who she told me she lost about 150 pounds off of keto, doing keto, and I don't think she's really practicing keto all that strictly right now. But I do remember talking to her about I guess kind of the difference. So when she was doing keto, she wasn't as hungry as she is now, in her kind of gone back to the SAD diet. And I think she's flipping back and forth between the two. I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but I'm just saying that there's a distinct difference, because we've talked about how come we've been able to stay on keto.
I would never want to go back to being hungry all the time.
Yeah,
that would be really miserable.
Yeah,
to me.
and I can't say that it's different. It's not like
it is.
It's not like a regular diet where you feel like you're deprived.
I talked to Becca about that, my sister. We were talking about that just like a week ago, and how 10 years ago we had practiced calorie restriction together, because I was living with her at the time, and we would go and get like Smart Ones or Michelinas or whatever, because they were a certain amount of calories.
Sure.
And so you would eat that, and it was almost like eating a Jenny Craig or whatever, because this was your allotment of your serving size and your calorie size. Eating that, and then like a couple of hours later you wanted to eat the carpet. You were so starving.
Right.
If somebody had given you a piece of cardboard, you would have eaten it because you were so hungry, and it was just so miserable because you were constantly thinking about food.
Yes.
Because you weren't full, and you knew you couldn't eat anymore because you'd had your calories for the day, so you were done. And it was just so.
Right.
It's not the same as this lifestyle, in my opinion.
No, it's not.
And that definitely has to be a reason why there's a longevity factor with this lifestyle, in my opinion. For me, for myself, that I've been able to be on this lifestyle for 3 years is because I'm not constantly starving and not constantly thinking about food all the time.
Right, exactly. Okay, so the bottom line for this section was that studies have found that the ketogenic diets are very effective for weight loss in obese people. A lot of you guys already know that. This is largely due to their powerful appetite suppressing effects.
Yes.
And so that's the bottom line with relation to ketogenic
Obesity and
obesity.
hunger.
Yeah.